Hi there, Mike MacArthur from the Oshkosh Public Library here with more Librarian Learns. This is the series where I take a look at a piece of Oshkosh history that someone has asked me about or that I've wondered about as I've just gone about my life in the city. Today I'm going to be taking a look at one of the city's two Civil War monuments. Now you're probably thinking of the more visible one, the big statue inside of Opera House Square. That was donated in 1907 to the city by Colonel John Hicks, publisher of the Northwestern, who donated a bunch of statues and art around the city. But that's not the one I'm going to take a look at today. I'm going to take a look at kind of a lesser known one that you might miss even if you were driving right by it, and that is the Camp Bragg Monument. Camp Bragg was the muster location for kind of soldiers who were getting together from northeast Wisconsin to prepare for marching south into the Civil War. So let's take a look at this, I feel, somewhat neglected monument to the Civil War veterans from Oshkosh. April 12, 1861, Fort Sumter near Charleston, South Carolina, is attacked by the South Carolina militia, starting the bloodiest conflict in U.S. history. Oshkosh, while not staunchly abolitionist, did vote 63% for Lincoln, showing a general backing for the cessation of slavery and the preservation of the Union. April 17, 1861, the Northwestern publishes the Governor's Proclamation calling for citizens to form companies to enter the war. The next day, the Union holds a big rally in town, and they pull together their first group of Oshkosh volunteers. Now, they muster and start drilling over by what is the old City Grove, which was near the old Franklin First Ward School, which was also near the old cemetery, which I did a video on a couple years ago. But there was another group of volunteers who mustered after them. They came together under the command of Captain John W. Scott of Oshkosh. They were dubbed Scott's Volunteers. Scott was a veteran of the Mexican-American War, had moved from Pennsylvania to Oshkosh in 1850, and was working as a jeweler at the time the Civil War started. So what would become Camp Bragg was actually formerly known as the Fairgrounds at that time. Its location was between East Irving and Parkway on the north and south ends, and Hazel and Evans on the east and west ends. This was to be the rendezvous point for soldiers who came from northeast Wisconsin, and it's where the 21st and 32nd Regiments of Wisconsin mobilized. The 21st in particular was made up of two companies from Oshkosh. They were not there very long. They only camped there for about 2 weeks before leaving for Cincinnati on September 11th. They left Cincinnati on September 18th for Louisville, Kentucky. It's there where they engaged in the bloodiest battle of the Civil War for them, the Battle of Perryville, on October 8th of 1862. They later engaged in battles in Tennessee and Georgia, taking part of the sieges of Atlanta and Savannah during General Sherman's famous March to the Sea. In all, they left Oshkosh with 1,002 soldiers. They lost 121 from wounds, 184 to disease, and 11 just from accidents. So the park, or the place where they mustered, would eventually be named for General Edward S. Bragg, not the Confederate General Braxton Bragg, because that would have been kind of weird. General Edward S. Bragg was not originally associated with the camp, nor even from Oshkosh, but it was requested to be named for him by several Oshkosh soldiers who had served with him earlier. Born in 1827 in Unadilla, New York, he was on his way traveling to Green Bay in 1850, where he stopped in Fond du Lac and kind of never left. He started a law practice. He was a city council member, and eventually he was elected city attorney in 1854. He also, serving in the Civil War, he attained the rank of brigadier general in 1864. He was one of the commanders of what was known as the Iron Brigade, a famous infantry brigade made up of soldiers from Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan. So, April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered the largest of the Confederate forces to the Union, effectively ending the Civil War, though it would be months before it was actually declared officially over. But anyway, the boys from Oshkosh got to return home. In the spring of 1915, to honor the 50th anniversary of the end of the Civil War, the Camp Bragg Memorial Association began working with the city to create a memorial for the place where hundreds of Wisconsinites started their journey to war. The monument was to have 4 12-pound Civil War cannons, creating a semicircle around a large boulder and a bench. Though officially installed in 1915, it wasn't officially dedicated until 1917, when a group of Civil War veterans gathered to share memories of all the 55 years earlier as they prepared and drilled and prepared to leave to the Civil War in the South. So here I am at the corner of Hazel and Irving in the Camp Bragg Memorial, which I gotta say, I wanted to talk about because it's easily forgotten. In fact, before I started this video, this is the first time I have actually stepped foot on the monument. The cannons are actually much bigger than you would think they were just by driving by them. This is not actually the original location of the monument. It was actually a block down at the corner of Cleveland and Hazel. So in 1972, the Mercy Medical, which owned the adjacent land, wanted to develop the monument space here for, you guessed it, parking spaces. So people weren't happy about this, but a deal was struck with the city that the city would sell the land to Mercy Medical on the stipulation that the hospital move the monument when they chose to develop the land, which they did in 1983, choosing, again, this site here, which is still inside the area that was formerly Camp Bragg. It almost disappeared again in 2002 when the Great Lakes company that bought all the buildings when Mercy moved tried to sell the cannons, thinking that they owned the land, so they owned everything on it, which apparently is not true. They didn't own the cannons. The city didn't own the cannons. Turned out the federal government actually owns the cannons. They were loaned to the city to build a memorial back in 1915 as part of the 50th anniversary of the end of the Civil War. So this all got worked out, and this was eventually turned into a city park where it has existed nicely since then. So hey, I learned something. If you like these videos, want to see more, continue to like, subscribe, tell people around town about it. Feel free to yell at me out of cars if you see me walking along the street. It's great for my ego. And with that, I'll see you later.